All right, so what you want to just start off
1 through 4. I'll go first, and I'll throw mine out there.
you want to just go one and we'll just do 1 and 2 here because well, we'll go 1 and 2 and then we could talk 3 and 4.
So for me, I got Lamar at 1. I got Ben at 2.
Oh, I got them flipped. I got Ben 1, Lamar at 2.
Because when I look at Ben's best season, which was last year, right, or the 2018 season, obviously we talked about
Best year. You're saying best year there? No.
That wasn't Ben's. From a statistical standpoint, it was his best year.
No.
What?
No, I'd take probably one of those 3 before that. Be honest with you.
All I'm saying is this was the only 18 was the year he led the league in passing yards. He had
32 touchdowns. Yeah.
Most passing yards, and the most touchdowns he had in the season was 34. That was all that in 2018.
I know there's 1 or 2 years where his QBR is a little better. That's kind of like that eye test thing that I factor in. I just remember watching more dominance in 1 or 2 of those other years.
So check it out. So his QBR in 2018 was 71.
And look at his 1 for 15 where he has like 21 touchdowns, 16 picks.
I was about to go. His QBR then was 71.1.
Yeah. Dude, I remember that year, man. I mean, yeah, you could say it's one of the top 4 or 5 seasons for sure.
So best QBR season was 2007. He had 75.1.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
Other than that, in 2012 it was 71.3. In 2015 it was 71.1, and then in 2018 it was 71.0.
Yeah, 2012 he was in the mix for MVP, and then he got hurt. I remember that.
So it's safe to say that 18 was his best season.
I'll give you that. I'd put it in the top 4, like you mentioned. You mentioned all those other years. I'd put it in there. But yeah, all right. If you want to say that, that's cool. I won't argue with you too much on there.
Like I said, 5,100 passing yards, 34 touchdowns. Right, that was a crazy amount. 34 touchdowns. We talked about the 16 picks, led the league with that. But now when you talk about Lamar Jackson, right? Lamar, he passed 3,100 yards, so he was around $2,000 shorter. But he did it also with 275 less passing attempts, and he still threw for 2 more touchdowns. He had 36 passing touchdowns that season compared to Big Ben 34. And then that doesn't even account for the 1,200 rushing yards that he had either. So from a statistical standpoint, Lamar's season as a whole was better than Ben's best season. And he did it with way less interceptions. Ben had 6 picks. Lamar had what? Let me see what it is. 6 picks. Ben is 6 picks to 16. That's 10 more interceptions. And outside of 19, where he only played 2 games, literally Ben has had double-digit picks the past 4 seasons. Then in 14, he had 9 picks, which would have still been 3 more than Lamar's. Then after that, he had a 14 and 13. And then in 2012, he still went for 8 picks. That was going to be 2 more than Lamar. Then he had 14 the year before that. You got to go all the way back to 2010 to pick a season where Ben has less picks and he had 5. So for me, and he only played 12 games that year. So for me, man, when you talk about Lamar versus Big Ben, and we're assuming both of them are going to be healthy, right? Because you assume that Ben is going to bounce back and be healthy and produce and the old Ben. Well, I got to assume with the same mindset that Lamar is going to play to his full potential and not be hurt and still go ahead and go out here and throw for 36 touchdowns and still rush for 1,200 yards. And if that's the case, then give me Lamar Jackson right now because that's the more productive player, the MVP, the All-Pro, the Pro Bowler.
Those are nice for the regular season. It's cool. It's cool in the regular season. Can he win a playoff game? 0-2 in the playoffs. 2 bad performances. I know you want to talk about 500 total yards. Go ahead.
Let's talk about that.
28. I think it's in the 20s. I wrote it down. It's like a 20-something QBR in that game. He had a 63 rating. I know the stats are gaudy, but you could see the Titans were kind of cool with him racking up the yards. I mean, because they got up quick and Lamar couldn't come back. So we've seen Ben have clutch playoff performances. He's got 2 Super Bowls. He's been able to bring the Steelers back on multiple occasions in the playoffs in big moments. I just haven't seen it from Lamar. I mean, the regular season stats are cool. Like, I have him, as a top 5-6 quarterback in the league, hands down. But when you're matching him up against Ben, I'm taking Ben. You consider the whole body of work, everything he has done in the playoffs, and just even in general regular season. I know you want to say Lamar's regular season was just better than any of Ben's. He's got the MVP and all that. But, dude, Ben is a Hall of Famer, just hands down all the body of work. But then you add the playoff success, And I know I could trust Ben in that arena. So that's why I'm going with Ben over Lamar. Lamar, he just hasn't proven it to me yet. It's as simple as that. I haven't seen it.
And I totally am with you when it comes to Ben in the playoffs. And you can go with the whole Super Bowl narrative, but once again, you're going to put a team stat on an individual because
no. But I've seen him come. I've seen him lead us back though in like a legitimate way.
Listen, let me talk. Your argument was that Ben has 2 Super Bowls. That's a team stat, correct?
It is.
That's a team stat. But what I would what my debate or rebuttal to that would be how many MVPs does he have? Because that's more individual. He doesn't have any. And we all can agree that first Super Bowl, that was not Ben going out there and being this dominant player. No, that was him being carried. So it is different. That's all I'm saying in that regard. Now, when we talk about the playoff success, absolutely. Ben has been more successful. It's not even close in the playoffs. But I will say this. I'm not going to hold Lamar's first playoff performance against him. The year where he took over mid-season, the offense wasn't even geared for Lamar, and he's playing against the Chargers, a team that he had just beat a couple weeks before, because we talked about how difficult it is to beat a team and then play them again in 2 weeks and beat them again. We had that experience with the playoffs where in 2014, where we beat the Ravens handedly a couple of weeks prior to that, had to play them in the wild card round, and we got smacked. So we've seen that before. It's not easy to do, so I'm not holding that against them. Last year's performance, the Titans were playing great. I don't have an issue with that. Like I said, he still produced, he racked up. It wasn't his best performance, but if his worst performance of the season was 500 total yards on offense, I think that's pretty good. So for me, that's my mentality when I look at Lamar in terms of his playoff performance. Now, this season going forward is going to be a big barometer in terms of where he is.
Yeah.
Because now we've seen him win an MVP. That's the best. I mean, for a regular season, that's the pinnacle. Ben, like I said, Ben doesn't have one of those. That's the pinnacle, right? So what's next for Lamar? Lamar is going to be gauged now what he does in the playoffs. That's what it comes down to now for Lamar. So I think for Lamar, that's the concern. That's the question mark. But when we're talking about who has the better setup for success this season, Baltimore has the better roster. We talked about this from offense and defense and special teams. They have the better roster. So he is going to be set up in a better position to be successful. Whereas Ben, number one, we're going to have some concerns on the offensive line. Outside of the big three, when you're talking about Pouncey, DeCastro, and Al, you got 2 new guys that are going to be starting at guard and at tackle. Those are concerns. We talked about with James Conner. What does he look like this season? We talked about with Juju. What does he look like this season? So for Ben, he's going to be asked to do a lot more at 38, coming off of a year of not playing from the elbow surgery and also not having the OTAs, the mini camps, and condensed training camp potentially. So it's a lot more concerns. So that's why for me, Lamar, not only do I feel is the better player right now, but he has the better setup for him to be successful this upcoming season.
Really? I actually feel better about our setup a little bit. I think we got the better receivers. And this is, I know you bring up the question marks. This is assuming everything's healthy, but I just think Ben being back, that's going to change the game for our offense. I just think...
I don't expect anything different from
I know,
you.
but dude, I don't know. I mean, we're 4 deep at receiver. We got 2 stud tight ends. And if James Conner returns to that form, I think that's a great setup for an offense and a quarterback coming in, to be honest with you. Ravens system is set up more for Lamar, but I think we got more names, to be honest with you.
So time out. Eric Ebron, Vance McDonald versus Mark Andrews, not close.
I'll take Mark Andrews, but we still got 2. We got 2 tight ends there, 2 really good tight ends.
Okay, well, still.
And then I'll take our receivers.
Okay, we can go with the receivers.
Running back, I'll give you running back. I'll give you Ingram over Conner right now, but older Ingram coming into this year.
You have J.K. Dobbins, who was the 2nd-round pick coming in this year as well. What do we see?
But we talk about the rookies with the uncertainties and the COVID and the training camps, all that type of stuff. So I'd take, dude, I'll give you Ingram right now. I think Connor's going to have a better year than Ingram, though. I really do.
I don't know. So why do you think that, though? Where have you seen that?
I just think he's young. If he's healthy, it's as simple as that. I think Ben changes the game for the offense. That's what I really think.
Question marks with Mark Ingram. There isn't an if healthy because he's been healthy. There isn't an if he can do it because he's done it numerous times.
Right.
So that's it's not a question mark with the Mark Ingram. You know what to expect. There isn't a question mark in that regard.
Well, dude, if we're talking aside from that, though.
Aside from that, what do you mean?
Aside from that, just Conner healthy, Ingram healthy. Conner at his age. I mean, okay. And with Ben coming back and just all the other weapons around us, I think he's going to have a baller year.
Okay, and I think he will too, but I also think Mark Ingram's going to play extremely well as well. Mark Ingram's Ball player.
I think he could too. I just don't think in terms of the offensive setup. I don't know. I'd give us the nod.
Ravens are geared for Lamar Jackson and Mark Ingram to flourish.
I understand that.
For James Conner to go for Ben to do what he does.
But then it goes back to just what we were talking about at the beginning when we were talking more or less Lamar versus Ben. Yeah. Is that conducive to be winning in playoffs? I know it could win. It could definitely win. Okay. But there are times where you get down, can you come back? And I think that was the thing that really killed the Ravens in that Titans game. They couldn't come back. The Titans were letting Lamar Jackson put up all those yards, waste the clock.
That all season once Tannehill took over, they got the lead and they're going to run the ball. That's what they do. So for me, I'm not going to hold one bad performance in a playoff game against Lamar because we've seen numerous times where average quarterbacks come in and might get hot or get on a run, and now their playoff record says one thing, but that doesn't have anything to do with their long-term success. So for me, I'm not going that route.
No, I think he'll be fine too. I'm just, when we're talking him versus Ben, that's kind of the thing I gotta bring up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We know how you feel about Ben, man. It's
dude, I don't know. I think he's gonna have a great year. I really do.
He will too, but I think it's fair to assume that if we're assuming Ben's gonna have a great year, I think that Lamar's gonna have a great year as well. I don't think that's out of the question. I don't
think it either. That's why I'm saying I'd put both of them in the top 5, 6. You know what I mean?
I think both of those things can happen. I think Mark Ingram and James Conner can have really good seasons this year. All I'm saying is, when I'm talking about right now in terms of predicting, it's easier to predict the Ravens' success because it's a lot less question marks. It's a lot less of, I hope this guy can do this, or I'm wishing this guy can do this. We've already seen these guys do this. That's the difference. So for me, that's why it's not a big question mark or can this take place? I already know it can because we've seen them do it numerous times. And that's when we're talking from a roster standpoint. We say, okay, Ben is the big X factor for the Steelers on offense, but there's still some question marks on that on that Steelers offense. Whereas when you're talking about the Ravens, their O-line is locked up. They're good there. Their running backs are good. Their biggest question mark on their offense right now is, can J.K. Dobbins produce and what the receiving rooms don't look like outside of Hollywood Brown? That's the biggest question mark right now. Whereas when you're talking about the Steelers offense, it's, okay, what is James Conner? Is James Conner the James Conner from year 2 where he went to the Pro Bowl? Or is he the other year where he didn't go and he looked, he was hurt a lot and he was dealing with the other things? For Juju, is Juju going to look like what he did the first 2 years when he had AD? Or is he going to look like last year when he was out there by himself and we saw how he didn't produce on that same type of level? That's the biggest, it's a lot more concerns offensively on the offensive line. We talked about how before they made the move before Ramon Foster retired, the Steelers had the oldest offensive line in the league. So when we're talking about that element of it, granted, they got 2 new pieces. Now you're going to have Matt Fowler potentially starting at left guard, in between Zach Banner and Chooks Okorafor starting at right tackle. Those are still going to be question marks. Whereas when you're looking at the Ravens offensive line, Ronnie Stanley is one of the best left tackles in the league. It's not even a debate. So when we go down the list of the players that they have on their offensive line and the team that they have constructed from an offensive standpoint, it's a lot less questions. And then defensively, the pickup of Calais Campbell was huge. Obviously, Derek Wolfe is another guy, Super Bowl champ, that has been was balling out last year before he got hurt in a contract year. That addition is going to be big. Matthew Judon, he's proven to be successful. He's a consistent player. Pernell McPhee, I think he's past his prime. I thought his best years were his first tenure with the Ravens, but now since he's left, he dealt with the injuries and he's just not the same player. But Patrick Queen, that's a huge pickup for them in the draft. Huge pickup. In their secondary, you put them up there with anyone, but between Marcus Peters and Marlon Humphrey, that's 2 old pros right there. And then you still got Earl Thomas in the back. So for me, I just feel like from a roster standpoint, they are more complete right now.
All right. So hold on. This is the thing then. I guess what I would say as the rebuttal just for the Ravens and even Lamar Jackson is the biggest question mark for them is just, I haven't seen them do it in the playoffs. Is this conducive to winning in that way? Whereas probably the biggest knock versus the Steelers is just question marks of health, correct? That's probably...
Not just health, but productivity. We haven't seen Juju as a number 1 receiver yet. We haven't...
I just think a lot of that's with Ben, and that's why I go back to health. You know what I mean?
Well, that's enough. But I look at it like it's less about health because if that's the case, then Deontay Johnson and James Washington would have had bad seasons also. because they didn't have Ben either.
Yeah, but Juju was hurt though too. He was hurt for a good portion of the season.
Understandable, but he still wasn't producing when he was healthy.
No, correct. I don't know. I feel like if he would have been in the system a little bit more and not as hurt as he was, I'm sure a rule could have been carved out for him.
We'll never know.
We will never know. But yeah, I'm taking Steelers. I'm taking Ben. So you got Lamar and Ravens over Ben and the Steelers right now. Well, I guess we're just talking quarterbacks. We'll get to